Take two. Let's try this again. I hope that I am oriented the right direction so that you can see what I'm doing and that you catch back up with me. Oh, that looks much better. That's how I want it. You can read the words. It's side to side. There are so many little details. That looks good. Give everybody a second to catch up with me since I had to start over. It's Friday, August the 27th. I hope everyone is having a great day and a good summer. It's still summer. When the heat index is over 100, that makes it still summer. So I was going to show you the cards that we made yesterday at my card class, Stamp Club. I kind of run them at the same time. I have some Stamp Club members, and to be a member of my Stamp Club, you just tell me that you want to be, and you commit to placing a minimum of $25 order each month to get your card class for free. And after 6 months, you earn a reward, an award, a prize. You get to choose a stamp set or product up to $25 as my thank you for being committed to my Stamp Club. My classes are $20, so it's really only a little bit more, and you get product plus my fabulous class. Everybody yesterday, they kept picking up a card going, oh, this is my favorite. Oh, I really like this one. And they would get done and they'd move on to the next one and they'd go, oh, I don't know, I really like this one. So that's always fun whenever the people who take part in the class enjoy the cards and like them. So I'm going to go ahead and get started. Hopefully you'll, so that I can get done and not take a lot of your time. The first card I'm going to do uses some of the designer series paper that is free with a $50 purchase. We are in the midst of celebration. August and September are the 2 months that it's our second go around for the year. So you're thinking, wait, I thought celebration is in the spring, and it usually is. But, you know, businesses like to try different things, different ways. And so this time they've decided to split it up. They do 2 months in January, February, 2 months, August and September. So this paper is one that you can choose with your $50 order, and it's called Beautifully Pinned. And the way this card is designed, it's not the full card front. So when you open the card, you get to see the back of the designer series paper also. So in your kit, I have already cut that part off the flap. So don't panic when you open it and go, oh my goodness, it's not all there. Well, that's on purpose. So I have scored it for you. It's cut at 4 1/4. And it would have been by 11, but I think I cut 3 inches off, so that makes it by 2 1/2. I don't have my little measuring side up on my. You got to choose if you wanted it to be pink or blue. That way, if you had, you know, a lady you wanted to send it to, or a more masculine, even though it's got flowers, I didn't think it screamed, I'm a girly card. So your piece of designer series paper is cut for you at 4 by 5 1/4, so that you have this little bit of matte around the edge. I do want to caution you about attaching that designer series paper, because you don't want to do your adhesive on the back of the paper. You want to do your adhesive, changing out my tape runner. I was working on one that is not coming off the spool right, and I haven't won that battle yet. So what I suggest doing is putting your adhesive on the flap so that you know, all right, come on, don't do this to me. Linda, you made it back. Sorry, I don't like it when it's not the right orientation, because then it makes it difficult to see if you're having to look at it up and down instead of side to side. So I think I probably put that a little bit too close to the edge, but I'm going to show you what I do when that happens. I still have an embossing buddy, which is a little pillow that has powder in it. And if you have sticky someplace where you don't want sticky, this will stick to it and kind of deactivate it so it's not sticky anymore. It does get powder everywhere, but it brushes off. So I don't know if there's an up and a down to those flowers. I know there's kind of an up and a down to the scallops. They might be. It doesn't matter. It's just black and white paper. I also did one of the labels out of the Color and Contour bundle of dies. So that's done for you. We use the Painted Texture 3D embossing folder and ran our piece of cardstock through it to give it some texture so it's not just plain on plain. And it is mounted on some dimensionals just to lift it up off the surface a little bit so it's not flat. I thought I would kind of take a little bit more time today and not rush through. Not everybody who wanted a to-go kit has actually gotten their kit yet, but when they do and they rewatch the video to see how to put them together, I thought if I didn't rush through it so fast, but you can always pause the video. Like if you need to go get stamps or find something, you can hit pause, come back and hit play. That's what I like about the replays, because I watch a lot of videos later because I don't necessarily have time at that moment to sit and watch. And put a little bit of sticky on there, and it's kind of mounted in the middle. So you can eye that up. I didn't use my bone folder, so it's not wanting to stay closed very well, so I'm going to tighten that fold a little bit. Alright, so we're going to do Happy Birthday, and I think I'm going to do mine this time with the pink. The Happy Birthday comes out of the Pansy Patch stamp set of all things, and so does my sentiment. I tried to figure out, and of course if you're getting a to-go kit, I'm not supposed to do the stamping for you, so whatever sentiments you have the flexibility of choosing from what you have at home. You don't necessarily have to say happy birthday if you need one that says congratulations. So this is on dimensionals, so it's a little more interesting and not just sitting flat. I go through dimensionals a bunch. You know what I forgot to do, but I'm going to show you how you can cheat. I forgot to tie the ribbon around it. You're probably sitting there going, huh, she forgot the ribbon, she forgot the ribbon. But I can find where those dimensionals are, and I can just slide it under. And if I don't want it, because I've already stuck this on also, I could go up here and do it above. This one is just going to be different. And it's just tied in a knot. Bows are kind of hard to tie sometimes. So if I fix it so you can just tie a knot, and I'm not going to tie it down really tight yet in case I decide I can take this off, because if you're really, really careful, you can peel that up. So that looks a little funny. Of course, that's about as far as I can slide it down because I put those dimensionals in the middle. And then we embellished it with the 2021 to 23 in color jewels. Aren't these the prettiest things? Everybody was enjoying sitting there just watching them sparkle. Today's video is sketchy because apparently the internet today is sketchy. I was watching a live from Rhonda Wade's live today, and it kept sketching, and mine is doing the same thing. It keeps saying video interrupted, and I'm sorry. I don't think that is from my Wi-Fi. I think it's the internet. Not much that I can do to make it better. I'm not going to stamp the inside. Depending on what sentiment you choose to put on yours is what you want it to say inside. So that's card number 1, and I'm going to go ahead and show you the second card that also uses that free designer series paper, that beautifully pinned. It's the back side of some of the paper, because the other side, I can show you, this piece of course has flowers, and there are different ways I've seen of coloring these flowers. Markers, the Stampin' Blends, sponge daubers, just about any way you can imagine, but we're going to use the striped side of it. And this is a get well card. Let me arrange the sentiment does come out of the hand pinned petals. This paper is made to coordinate with the beautifully pinned products in the catalog. So we've used the flower. We'll stamp that, and I'll show you about coloring that, and then the die that cuts that out. And on the inside, I wanted something that didn't necessarily say get well, because I've already said it on the front. So I chose the hugs, prayers, and love out of positive thoughts, because that usually covers what you want to say to someone whenever you're wishing them to, saying get well to them. So the secret to this, and hopefully I won't do it incorrectly, is to make sure you tie your ribbon around this black square before you mount it. Another one of those times when you kind of have to take a moment, look it over, decide how the layers go together so you can get all your pieces put on correctly. Linda, I do have an extra card kits. If you would like these cards, we can work out how you can get some of the stamping done. Like this one, you probably don't have that stamp set, but my suggestion is if you've got a flower of some kind. I actually started working with the dahlia out of the celebration brochure. This one is free with a $50 purchase, and I kind of gave up on it, but you could see where that would be pretty. It was going to have to be cut out by hand. So, if you've got any kind of flowers that you could arrange on there, that would be perfect. A neat way to send flowers to someone when they're sick without actually sending flowers is to send them a card with flowers. That was what I was thinking even when I was making the card. I'm like, okay, that'll wish them. I always put just a little bit of the adhesive along the 4 sides. I don't necessarily do it solid, but I like for my sides to be stuck. So it's okay to put that one on first. And I believe I'm going to go ahead and do the flower. And what you do need to know about this particular flower, it's I hit myself with a block. It's a photopolymer stamp, and I know I say it every time. especially with these larger images, you need to use one of the piercing mats. And I'm going to need to get it from across the room, so hang on. In order for the image to stamp nicely, and in the middle, you know, they don't have that cushiony base like our clear mount stamps do. The red rubber stamps have that little cushion in them. And this is a big stamp on a big block. So I ink it face up instead of trying to do this number because it's heavy. You can do it, but I find this a lot easier. You can see where the ink is and know if it's fully inked or if you've missed some spots or if it looks like it's thin. And it doesn't really matter how you put it on here because you're going to use a die or hand cut it, whichever works out. Then I kind of moved around even on the photopolymer. That looks pretty nice. So if you'll hang on a minute, I'm going to wet my rubbing thing over here. Here's what the die looks like. I do need to punch out. It's one thing about this particular die. It has some open areas, and you got to make sure you keep your dies cleaned out. See, it skipped again. All right. So coloring this, we're not going to actually color it necessarily, but we are going to use some stamps. It's meant to be a kind of a watercolor look. And see, it doesn't fill in the lines perfectly. And for those of us who like things filled out perfectly, that's a bit of a challenge. But sometimes you just have to get outside your comfort zone. So you just move it around until you find a look that you like. It looks like it's filling it in pretty well. So that's how I colored that one. And then there is the flower to do over there. And how I got that to look lighter is I stamped it off. Let me get a piece of scratch paper. I don't want to stamp on my background because that makes it look yucky. So make sure I've got that inked well. So I'm just going to stamp on a piece of paper and then flip this around and find, I think it goes this way. Pretty close. And it's lighter. It could be a little darker, but that's how it turned out. So that's how we're going to go. And then the leaves, they were challenging because I've got all these stamps hiding in here. They didn't give us a leaf necessarily that fills in that part. They've given us two individual leaves, two different sizes. So they don't fit them exactly, but it fits it well enough. And I'm going to do this one lighter. And then if I do this one darker, it kind of covers up where and even though that's not a leaf, I wanted a little bit, I'm going to do that again. I don't like the way that looked. I wanted a little bit of green right there. So I used the leaf and I just turned it upside down. And you can't tell it was the leaf. It looks like it was made to go there. So that's how those are colored. Now you could, like I said, use your marker and color them by hand. Whatever floats your boat, but doesn't sink your canoe. And then I've got my die cutting machine over here on another table so that it wouldn't shake you really hard. I'm gonna make remember our new die cutting machine, it shows you on the platform how to layer the different pieces. I'm using a thin die, so this is number 1. Number 2 is like an adapter that makes it thick enough. Here's a number 3. And then the second number 3 is going to go on the top. So I'm going to line those up now. Put my piece of cardstock in my die. And you just kind of have to hold your mouth right and take a few seconds to get it lined up. And then this goes on top. It is skipping in and out really bad on mine. I hope it's not skipping in and out really bad for you guys. Alright, running it through the die cutting machine. Let's see what we got. Kind of have to encourage it to come out of the die sometimes. And see, it leaves those white pieces where it punched them out right there, but it just takes a piercing tool and give it a little poke and clear it out. If you don't, the next time you use it, it might not work very well because it will be clogged up. You know, it's like a hose. After a while it gets clogged up and it doesn't want to work. There's a little circle in your kit, and you'll have to use some kind of a hole punch to punch a hole in it. You're going to tie it on with some baker's twine, and I provided a tool to do it with here. It was actually my Crocodile, which is, it's not a Stampin' Up product, but it's a eyelet setter for scrapbooking, but it has 2 different sizes of hole punch. I have a regular hole punch, but I was afraid that was going to be like overkill, way too big. All right, so I've got my feel better. Now let's build our square. We've used the square doily. Those are so pretty, and to me they're challenging to use, so I was really excited that I figured out a way for this one that I could use it. And I think I'm going to use some mini glue dots. And I'm going to pick areas that are a little thicker to apply. Whoops, it didn't stick. Try that again. To get the glue dot to stick. You can also use your silicone mat and your tape runner to put some glue on the back of it. And this just takes a little while. It really doesn't have to be stuck on solid necessarily, but just enough so that it stays in place. Let's see if that's going to be enough. And if I figure out I want more, I can use my piercing tool and sneak some up underneath there. And you can see them, but this is going to cover a lot of it. But first, let's tie the ribbon around it. You should have enough ribbon in your kit. I tried to be pretty generous because it takes more ribbon to tie a bow than it does to tie the knot. So, tie the bow, and then you can move it up and down depending on where you want it to be. How about that? And this is mounted on dimensionals, and it can either go under your bow or a little bit on top of the ribbon. I think I want mine to go on top of the ribbon today. I'm going to put my dimensionals out this direction. Yep, and this leaf needs one. I'm not going to put any on the bottom, I don't think. I do need it on this flower right here. And then you can just kind of eye that up, figure out where you want it to be. If you don't want your bow that big, just pull it in some. And I'm going to trim my tails because I know I don't want tails that long. I usually make my tail about as long as the loop on the bow. There aren't any rules that I know of, and I see people who leave them long and they look really pretty, but they never look pretty on my card that way. So I've just kind of started being more consistent and just cutting them off. Alright, you know, I think I may do that under that ribbon a little there, but on top of the ribbon here. And get a piece. Doesn't have to be a real long piece because you kind of want that tag up close to the bow. So I put it through there, run it under here, and you could tie your knot just by doing the loopy thing, however you want to tie your knot. Get those tails in through here, and then don't tie it down until you know that you have it just about. Yep, that'll work. Then you can tighten it and trim your tails, because it really doesn't need to stand out much. It's just holding that sentiment in place. And then this can be mounted flat. You don't have to put it on dimensionals, but you're welcome to if you think that looks better. It's totally up to you. So I'm going to run some adhesive there, and on this side of my ribbon, and on this outer edge. And if you want it up, more like a book label, in the middle or towards the bottom. I'm going to do mine more in the middle. And on this one, let's see if I can find down in this box. I have to show you this box. Look, it's just all dumped in there, just however it ended up. But that's the way it goes. When I'm cleaning up the class, I just start grabbing stuff and throw it in the tub. Hugs, prayers, and love. That's true. And this one is a clear mount, so it has its cushion in there already. Yep, turned out pretty good. Close that up. Clean off my stamp. Put that away. And just a piece of designer series paper that's I had scraps left, so that's a good way to get rid of. This one is cut, I believe it's a 1/2 inch thick. And I just eye it up and stick it down here so that when they open, if this doesn't cooperate with you and you don't like what it's doing, just put a little glue dot under it. It's kind of cute just flopping around though. So that's card number 2. Let's see what we're going to do for number 3. I'm going to do the more fall-like cards next, and then I've got one Christmas card. I felt like August was a little bit too early to jump all the way into Christmas, so I'm easing into it. We'll do more next month. Alright, this one, of course, can be a sympathy card. If you just need a thinking of you card, you wouldn't put with deepest sympathy on the inside, but thinking of you on the outside. This stamp set, I've used it a couple or 3 classes, Beauty of Friendship, and you expect it to say something trees. Now the dies are called Beautiful Trees, but the stamp set is Beauty of Friendship, and this can be purchased as a bundle, which means you get a 10% discount. These trees are just gorgeous, and they can be any season depending on what color you make them. And since we're still in summer, I didn't go for the fall colors. I hope that I'm kind of gone for the late summer colors. You know, it's still green outside. Some of the trees are beginning to color up a little bit. If they're stressed, I'm thinking is what's happening there. This card opens from the top like this, so it's cut at the 4 1/4 by 11, scored at 5 1/2. I also do, you know, try to provide different folds so that you're not always making a card that opens like a book. So this is the inside piece, and the inside does have a piece of the designer series paper across it. Another way to get rid of your scraps. So there aren't too many secrets to this card. You should have a piece of the wood grain. And this is out of the Beauty, oh, I don't remember the name of it. Let me see if I've got a package and I can show you. That was the door prize, was a fourth of a package of the paper. I don't remember the name of it, and I didn't put my catalog by me. So I'm going to show you how to stamp the tree. There's really nothing much to it except trying to get it in the right place. The tree trunk is soft suede. The leaves are old olive. This is what's called a distinctive stamp. Yeah, it's also photopolymer. Guess what that means? You need your piercing mat. Hi, Laura. I'm happy you hopped on. Even though you've seen these cards already, it's still fun to watch somebody else make them. I'll try not to be boring. This is number 3. So I was going to show about stamping the tree. I like to start with the trunk. We had different discussions trying to decide what's the best order to do that. But that way I can make sure that I'm far enough down. And I was afraid if you started with the greenery or the leaf part of the stamp that you might end up too high and it would kind of look funny. There's not a right or a wrong. But because I'm using the piercing mat, it just stamps really well. There's a little puddle of brown at the bottom of my tree because sometimes stuff doesn't grow there. Now I could have made it green. When the leaves start falling, you could make it match the tree, orange or yellow or some of those colors. All right, close this one up. Old olive. And actually the cardstock is Mossy Meadow. I think these two coordinate together really well. The neat thing about this stamp, I was in the middle of explaining that it's what we call a distinctive stamp. So with one stamp, I'm going to get the variegation in the colors because this stamp is designed to take ink differently depending on how it's etched. And that's all I have to do. And the tree looks like it has depth and some contour, and there's light and dark variegation in it. There is another stamp that you could use if you wanted to add another layer, and I tried it because I try different things when I'm designing these to see how they're going to look, and I didn't like the way it looked. So I just went with that one stamp. While I've got the ink pad out, I'm going to stamp the sentiment. We stamped it in Old Olive. It could be stamped in Early Espresso. I got to get it over here where I can see it because I want it kind of in the middle, and I'll tell you why. Really didn't even have to be straight because I'm going to cut it out with a label. The only part of the dies that we used is this label right here. And in person, you can see the detail on the edge of this label. It's not just straight edge like it would be if I used that. So I'm going to run it through, and that's when I can, like if I stamped it crooked, well now I can fix it. You can see how it's angled a little bit because I'm using this straight edge right here to line up underneath the straight edge of the letters. And it doesn't matter that I've stamped it crooked because I'm going to cut it out. It's going to be straight if my die cutting machine cooperates with me. There is always that. Alright, that looks fine. Got it lined up. Put the top on it. Run it through and pray that it's still straight. I didn't put a roll of washi tape in here. This is one of the times if you don't have a magnetic. Yep, that's straight. How about that? So that was one of the things you got to do in class. I couldn't really, if I had cut them out ahead of time, it would have been hard for you to stamp it straight. But since you were going to do your own. And this is on some dimensionals. And remember, we have 2 different sizes of dimensionals. We have these mini ones. And I always do it so I have a straight edge to straight edge. And I'm going to put 3, each ending in the middle. I try not to overdo it with the dimensionals, because, you know, you don't need to put them solidly on the back, but you don't want it sagging either. So there's a happy medium, I think. And then you just kind of pick where you want that to go. Kind of center the greeting. And it's mounted on a piece of cardstock, Mossy Meadow. And I'm not going to take the time to adhere all of this, even though I said I was going to go a little bit slower. I lied. Let me go ahead. This side would look good on it too, even though it's green on green. Gets kind of busy. I would suggest probably about in the middle of the card, so that that can go there. And let's put some dimensionals on it. Each corner for sure. And let's see. This one's big enough. I think it's going to need in the middle here and then in the middle there. There's not, I don't think there's anybody who says, oh, it has to be this way or you're not doing it right. Oops. I didn't mount that. No fear. It's not too late. And I know it's tone on tone, but this being mounted on that layer makes it show up a little better. And it's okay to do tone on tone. So that is card number 2, 3. Let me put these things back in here. You do have a very vanilla envelope. The sentiment that I used on the inside with deepest sympathy comes out of Peaceful Moments. This is a very useful set of sentiments that I will probably keep even when it does retire, because I'm always looking, especially for cards that I make for personal use, for sentiments. Alright, let me switch out. And put that there. Find the card we're going to make so you can see. Oh, this one is just gorgeous. And it does scream fall, but that's where we're headed, is fall. So it uses the Sparkle of the Season bundle. I'm going to show you my favorite thing about the dies for this bundle. I think I had to show everybody yesterday, because when I started using it is when I realized, you know, you look at things in the catalog and you see it, but you don't see it. And then I got ready to make this card, and I had this on the top. Well, there's stars and there's evergreens. And I'm like, well, where's the one that has the leaves on it? And oh, there must be a second sheet. And I pulled it out, and lo and behold, there's a second sheet that had the framelit that has the leaves. It also has the leaves that we used on our pumpkin, has a little bat. And in the stamp set then, it coordinates with some of the stamps. So we'll be using the one with the stars, and I'm sure we'll use the evergreen because it's the season for that kind of stuff. Get this. I'll put them on the magnet sheet. So, oh, somebody's at my door. I guess he's just going to have to wait. So on my magnet sheet, I have 2 teeny tiny dies. And I'll end up transferring all of these over. But I tried putting these 2 teeny tiny dies on the small magnet that I use sometimes, and it wasn't strong enough to hold them, and I was afraid I was going to lose them. So it looks kind of funny to have this huge sheet and these 2 teeny tiny dies. So in your kit, soft suede is the card base, and it's already scored. So I'll fold that. We have the piece for the inside. I do not believe, I did not stamp any sentiment, because grateful could be a thank you note. It could be that you're needing to send somebody a card just to say that I'm thinking of you. It could be a birthday card. So I didn't put a sentiment. You get to choose. We did stamp out of the stamp set, one of the limbs there that coordinated with the front. Then we have, I believe it's So Saffron for the yellow. And let me show you. I gotta dig it out from underneath everything in the box. The bark. This is a 3D embossing folder. Bark that looks like a tree. And I think it's so fun. I'm gonna run it through, because you put in a flat piece of cardstock and it comes out embossed just by running it through your die cutting and embossing machine. It's an amazing thing. Doesn't take much to entertain me sometimes. So look at that. Can you see the texture? And because it's 3D, it's heftier, you know, it's deeper. And then that's mounted on, let me run some adhesive. The texture sometimes is kind of challenging to get adhesive to cooperate. It's probably one time when glue might be good, but I don't like using the Tombow that we have. Alright, it does shrink your paper just a little. So you can see here I have a little bit of yellow sticking out from the bottom because I lined it up on the top. But I decided, well, that's just the way it turned out. That's how I'm going to have to go. And I can go ahead and mount this on the card. And it's cut the same length. So it's 5.5 inches long. And I believe it's 3 1/4 wide. The So Saffron. I think this is 3. And then when you die cut these, I did put adhesive sheet on the back because I didn't on my sample card, and I was left with, how am I going to stick that on my card? So I decided, oh, I'm going to have to use those adhesive sheets for my class. And as you can see, it's a little tedious to get it out because it's a very delicate and lots of detail. And I left that part together so you get to do your own removing. I did cut them out because sometimes they would stick in the die and it was challenging. So you had to clean it up yourself. I did not take the time to do that. I at least did the die cutting for you. And then you can just put it on, stick it on whatever way looks nice to you. I think I cut out, I wonder what I did with them. I thought I had cut out my pumpkins and leaves already, so that was, oh, it may be in the envelope. Let me see. Nope. I had cut them out ahead of time, so I wasn't having to sit here and do it. Alright, let's stamp our grateful. It can be stamped in any of the colors that you use or memento. And I decided it showed up really well just to stamp it in black, memento. So you just kind of make it straight. And there's a little detail. There is a set of leaves. They're small. And it just added, it looked kind of empty just to do it that way. So I'm sitting here thinking, now how can we add something to it? And so I got out my markers, just plain old everyday markers. and you use the brush end and you wipe a little color on it. I use the side of the marker. Well, now the phone's ringing. Uh-oh, I touched it. And I just stamped a few to make it look like what I wanted it to look like. And I had already embossed, but you can press just hard enough to get that detail. And this is the yellow, the pumpkin pie. I use pumpkin pie, Cajun craze, and garden green. I think I got that. And I'm going to put one right up here. Alrighty, so once you stick all that down, I'm not going to take the time to die cut pumpkins. You know what die cutting is. And the leaves, I use glue dots, and the pumpkins are on dimensional, so they're lifted up. You'll tie a bow with, this was the baker's twine, but we also used, what is this one called? Yeah, that one's going to need a little work. So, tie a little bow. And that makes your fall card. Alright, throw that away. You know what? I think I'm going to go ahead and remove the adhesive off the back of this so I'm not having to try to keep up with. And this is another time whenever your little tool comes in handy, because you can get it up underneath the edge of that. And this side. Apparently the die really cuts that. Kind of shredded the adhesive. Because I want to try to do this in a hurry. Of course, it's taking forever. One more. I do want that leaf to stick. Alrighty. And I believe I decided that is probably the best way. And if you need it to stick some more, just a little drip of glue underneath the back of that will get the job done. Alrighty, let's move on to the one Christmas card that we did. And it is so cute. It uses the penguin. Put all this away so it's out of my way, so I can spread the penguin out. The designer series paper, which is a free option with your $50 purchase. The Penguin Playmate, I think is the name of the paper. We're using that and we're cutting it apart. So to get the pieces that we need, here it is. In your kit, and this is just jade, the card base is. I went through and kind of cut around the shapes that you need in order to create the card. This one opens from the top, horizontal and landscape. And this one's horizontal. Use the bone folder to set that fold. There is a piece of paper that goes across. These little critters are so cute. I was watching somebody else make a card, and she's like, I don't know if you call these critters or what you call them. So I'm going to go ahead and put that on, even though it has the stars stamped. They are out of the Penguin Place. Here are the stars. They're stamped in Just Jade. And get the little hat. I can stamp them before I cut my little guy out because I kind of need to know where to stamp them and how high. He takes up a little bit of room. Mr. Polar Bear is a pretty big feller. So you just cut him out by hand. And I'm not going to cut them all three out, but I am going to cut him out so that I can see where to stamp my stars. Just leave a little edge. You don't have to cut him right up next to the... He's a little bit hard to see, so you might want to do this in some pretty good light. I don't want to cut the... It won't matter. I'm going to put a hat on him anyway. He has little tufts of hair on top of his head. Don't necessarily want to cut those off, but whatever. And go around there and around his foot. Coming in. There you go. So I'm just going to kind of place him on there. Probably could have put my strip of Designer Series paper a little bit lower. Stamp some of these snowflake stars. The nice thing about it, you can always go back later and add some if you don't like where it's ended up and you think you need more. One little hint to keep from actually stamping on him is to take a piece of paper and cover him up, and then that way, even if you stamp on him. So there was this little teeny tiny piece of cardstock in the envelope, and the first lady is like, "What is this for?" And I'm like, I don't remember. It's to stamp his hat. He's got a hat. See right there? And you only needed a scrap. So that's what that was for. We figured it out when she got to that part. It's like, oh yeah, that's to stamp his cap. I forgot. So this one you would like to leave that little bobble on the top. He's pretty cute with his hat. There's his hat. Throw this in the trash. So I'll cut the penguin out. The neat thing about the penguin, you can cut him by hand, or there's a punch, the penguin builder punch, that is part of this bundle. We'll use this in another class. But my caution is I can't punch Mr. Penguin out as long as he's on this sheet, because then I'll accidentally punch the fox. But that's why I keep Post-it notes at my desk, because now I have a handle and I can put Mr. Penguin in here using my handle. Yesterday everybody got to cut him out by hand, but next month we're going to make a penguin from scratch, and his body is going to be sparkly. There you go. He's cut out. I'll show you the bodies. I have some that I've already punched out. They don't look like anything yet because it's just the glimmer paper. But this white part right here, I'll punch right quick, because that's his tuxedo part. That makes him look like a penguin. And then the stamp set has the dies that you stamp his eyes and his face and build your penguin. And then he's got feet, so we'll stamp out his feet and put them on him. He will be so cute. He's sparkly, because glitter, you know, people gotta glitter. So this one says Season's Greetings, and that is in the stamp set, and there should be a label in your and this actually is cut from the Potted Succulent dies, which is kind of a surprising. I stamped it in blue, but it's gonna be green today, upside down. There are 2 sizes of this in that die, in that set of dies, as well as the succulents. But sometimes we don't choose to purchase things because of all, you know, it's called potted succulents. Well, you have to look at, that's the way the hippo dies are also. So that's how you build this. And they're all just glued on. They're not mounted on. This one is mounted on dimensionals. And then the sentiment for the inside that we chose is, we wish you a Merry Christmas. So that was our one Christmas card for this month. So I just want to remind you of the Sweet Stockings bundle class coming up on September the 9th. I really kind of need one more person to participate in that. It is $35, but you get half the package of Sweet Stockings Designer Series paper. We'll use that bundle. Let me see, what page is it on? I always have to. It's right here. And you look at it and you go, oh, I don't like cat and dog paper. But the way these are designed, you could leave the cats and the dog off of these and then choose a different sentiment. And those stockings are worth this kit. So you'll get the paper, package of the matte dots, and I'm using the black gingham ribbon instead of this pool party ribbon. And then you get your 5 card kits for your $35. You might want to think about adding on the stamp set. It would be $25, and yes, it's listed in here for $22, but keep in mind I still have to pay shipping and tax, so I kind of added a little bit in order to get that money back. So that class is on September the 9th. I think it will just be a 2 o'clock class because that's just the way it's going to work out. And then my next stamp class is September the 23rd. It's a Thursday. So if emails will go out about those. Celebration goes until September the 30th. So if there are things that you would like to get, $50 gets you free product. So you've got a month to look and figure out. This paper is one of the free items. So, all right, that's all for today. Thank you so much for putting up with me. I'm sorry that it was sketchy, but that seems to be how the internet is today. And I will talk to you later. Have a great day. Bye.